All right, let's talk about this bike because this is pretty interesting. Now, I think they said this will retail for about $9.99, and I think that's a good price. I don't know if they can go any higher than that. I think that's at the tipping point for me, but for other people, I don't know if it's worth it or not. So let's talk about it. So this fork right here, I've never even heard of this fork, but it does have 32 millimeter stanchions, and it's the black fork, which tends to be a little better. But I ran into a guy here in Bentonville, and he's a mechanic, been a mechanic for a long time. He said the silver ones are actually stronger. So that was something that I learned new. So when the fork is black, now I won't automatically assume that it's better. And it's okay. I mean, it's definitely, the way it is right now, it's trail ready. I just feel like it was a little bouncy. So I recorded this part talking about the bouncy suspension before I realized we didn't have the suspension set up properly. So I went to Walmart, took it back, and we got it set up properly, and this thing rode amazing. But that's one thing about having a cheaper suspension setup, is because you got to dial it in pretty good, or you'll notice that the suspension is really rough through chunky sections. But when you have a nicer suspension, you can kind of get over those hurdles without noticing it too much. But make sure you keep that in mind, that you got to set the suspension up properly if you want this bike to ride at optimal level. All right, if you hear anything weird, it's because the dork disc came loose. And this bike actually handles it. It handles the gnar. And that might be two reasons. One, I'm not sure if I set this up properly. And two, these tires are not tubeless. So I'm not able to run the tire pressure I would normally run when riding a full suspension bike, or any bike for that matter. So that could be an issue. So I think if I would have set this suspension up the way it was supposed to be, I think it would have probably ridden a lot better. But it didn't ride bad. It was just a little too stiff. And I wanted it to be a little softer. Even though I like riding my bike stiff, this was a little too stiff for it to be a full suspension, because the rear felt like that too. Now I'm not sure if that's a Sun Tour thing or if that's a me setting up the suspension thing. Now the dropper post, I never had any issues with that. It came up and down super smooth, never got jammed up or anything like that. The brakes, I can't even believe these are Tektro brakes. They stop so well. No issues with braking power. Now the one thing I did have an issue with was that drivetrain. Now I feel like the drivetrain on the slalom, I think that's the Shimano Q's, it shifts a lot better than this drivetrain. This one wasn't bad, but it was a noticeable difference between this and the Q's. But the Shimano Q's, I do think shifts a lot better than the micro shift at VinX. But it's not bad for a 1x10 drivetrain for sure. I mean, look at the frame is robust. It looks really robust for a Walmart bike. They said they put a lot of attention to detail in this bike to make it an actual trail bike that you can feel confident ripping down chunky sections with. These wheels and tires are tubeless compatible. So if you get this bike, you can run this tubeless. No need to buy any new tires or new wheels. So that's always a great thing. Oh, this bike does come with a shock pump. Can you believe it? Walmart said they are going to give the customer a good experience, a good unboxing experience. And one of those things that's in the box will be a shock pump. So that's super awesome, because you know when you buy a regular mountain bike from another store, you gotta spend usually $40 to $60 on a shock pump. So you gotta add that cost in there too. And they sell those Ozark Trail pedals, which are only $20 or $30, I think, and they work really well. So this, I mean, you could get everything you need for this bike through Walmart, which is awesome. So I do think they are stepping it up a notch and really trying to make a concerted effort to value the customer, and I really appreciate that. And this bike does have UDH, Universal Derailleur Hanger. Can you believe that? So you can run XTR wireless on here, SRAM transmission wireless. You could like really deck this bike out, and I think the frame actually justifies the upgrades that you can do to this bike. Now the big question is, after knowing what I know and riding all the different bikes I've ridden, would I buy this bike? Whew, this is gonna be a tough one to answer, but I'm gonna have to say, as much as I like this bike and as much value as you get out of this bike, me personally, I wouldn't buy it. And that's because I like hardtails. Now this is a great bike and an awesome bike, but if somebody came to me and asked me, should they buy this bike? I would have to ask them, do you want a full suspension? Why do you want a full suspension? Or do you want a hardtail? Or have you even ridden a hardtail? Or I would just have to ask questions, because for me, I want a nice hardtail. I wouldn't go out and spend my money on a full suspension bike. I would go spend my money on a nice hardtail. But this is super awesome, and they did say they have a hardtail coming down the pipeline, so I'm excited about that one. But me personally, I like this bike a lot, but I wouldn't personally buy it. But anybody looking for a full suspension, I would for sure get this. It's definitely worth the money. You could do any possible thing you would want to this bike as far as upgrades go. All right, as we drop off the Walmart bike, let me know what you think of it. I think it's definitely worth it. They said something about this front hub being open bearings or something like that, but the rear hub is all sealed and everything like that. So the front hub is the only thing I feel like they cheaped out on. And to get this bike under $1,000, you have to go somewhere. And I would rather them go there than anywhere else, because you can always put new wheels on this bike, which is, if I get this bike, I would definitely put new wheels on it, just because I ride pretty hard in Colorado, so I don't know how these wheels will hold up. But yeah, this bike is awesome. I mean, I can't believe they got this bike under $1,000. And I don't know a release date yet. He said he'll let me know, so I'll hopefully get that information to you soon. I can't say enough about it. The handlebars are pretty narrow. He said they are shorter on the smaller bikes, longer on the bigger ones. So it's small, medium, large so far. I'm not sure if they'll do an extra large yet. I have to ask. This is the size medium, and I think these bars are 740, I think he said. They are pretty narrow. I'm super impressed by how much braking power these brakes have. This is incredible. But yeah, this bike is a all-around beast. It's ready to go right out of the box. No upgrades necessary whatsoever. And it's got a dropper. That's super awesome. So let me know what you think down below on this bike. I had to go back out, ride it again, because we had to get the suspension correct. It rode way better with the suspension, how it's supposed to be. Now, the only thing I will say is that derailleur, I had the clutch on. I'm not sure what's going on, but there's a lot of chain slap. And out of all the things with this bike, the only thing I can say that really annoyed me or I didn't like about the bike is the chain slap. So I'm not sure what's going on with that derailleur, but that's the only issue that I found. So if you're going down chunky sections, there will be a lot of noise because of the chain slap, but other than that, I think this bike is a beast.